Yeah, in the last class, we were discussing about the optical sources and the detectors. So the optical sources and detectors are used for to convert your electrical signal into the optical domain, and then detect the optical signal and convert that into electrical signal. So it is used before transmission into your optical fiber. So that's where we need to study the optical sources and detectors. So in that we have discussed about the wideband continuous spectra, which are not suitable for optical communication because of wideband, so incandescent lamps. So, and we have discussed about the monochromatic incoherent sources and monochromatic coherent sources. So monochromaticity is such that if the source which generates the signal in the given band itself, that means it is a narrow band, so it is in the single band itself, the source generates a light, that is called as monochromatic light. So in case of coherent sources, so the wavelength is also same as well as phase is also same. Okay, the photons, the wavelength as well as the phase of the photons which are generated from the source are same, then it is called as a coherent source. So monochromatic coherent sources are lasers, monochromatic incoherent sources are LED. So we have discussed that in the last class, and we have discussed the requirements and the characteristics of an optical fiber emitter. So I have noted down some 9 to 10 requirements and also the characteristics of the optical sources. And then I've explained what is monochromatic light, what are coherent sources, what is a coherent light, how it look coherent light, how it look like, and I've explained about incoherent LEDs. And then we have compared LED and laser. Okay, and then we have discussed about the absorption as well as the emission. In case of absorption, uh, the uh, the electron or the um, holes present in the valence band or in the lower bands takes the energy from the incidented photon and jumps to the conduction band. So that is absorption. So there are two types of emission we have discussed. One is spontaneous emission, another one is stimulated emission. Spontaneous emission is used by LED. So while it has to come from the conduction band to the valence band, it releases the energy within the wavelength of optical domain, and so the light is generated and it is passed out. Okay, then it jumps to the valence band. So that is spontaneous emission. It doesn't take the external energy. The energy present in it will be released in the form of photons, and it jumps from the conduction band to the valence band. That is spontaneous emission. In case of stimulated emission, only difference is the takes the energy from the incidented photon and jumps from the conduction band to the valence band, and it also releases the photon, and the photon released and the incidented photon will be in phase, as well as the amplitude will also be so the wavelength will also be same, so they add up together, which leads to the amplification. That is called as stimulated emission. So stimulated emission is used by laser, spontaneous emission is used by LED. So that we have discussed that. Okay, and we have discussed something called as a direct band gap and indirect band gap thing. So direct band gap is the gap between the lowest um, energy level of the conduction band and the highest energy level of the valence band is your band gap. So this is called as the band gap. So in this band gap energy, there is a direct band gap as well as indirect band gap. Direct band gap is, so both are both the higher level of the valence band and the lower level of your conduction band will be same with respect to the momentum. So then it releases an energy. It is called as a direct band gap. With respect to the momentum, they are same. So those are called as direct band gap. These are the materials which are used for manufacturing of LED and laser. So such as gallium arsenide, aluminum arsenide, gallium aluminum arsenide. So these are the materials which belongs to direct band gap. These direct band gap materials emit the light when they jumps from conduction band to the valence band. Okay, so this is your direct band gap material. Indirect band gap materials are your silicon and germanium. So their higher energy level of the valence band and the lower level of your conduction band are not are not same with respect to the momentum. So it takes the third particle to jump from your valence band to the conduction band. These are called as indirect band gap material. Okay, so these are not used for your optical for the manufacturing of your optical sources. Okay, this is what we have discussed, and we'll go through the next concepts. So there is I have pointed out the band gap energy. The band gap energy is the energy gap between the conduction band and the valence band. Okay, for different semiconductor materials, I have noted down the band gap material, either direct or indirect band gap material. Both I have noted down here. Okay, then there is a relationship why we need that band gap. So that band gap has a relation with respect to the wavelength of the photon which is generated. The wavelength in terms of band gap energy, e.g. in electron volts, is given by a lambda wavelength microvolts is equal to 1.24 into the band gap energy in terms of electron volts. Okay, so whatever the electron volts mentioned here, so just replace it, then you get a wavelength. So that means the wavelength of the photon which is generated, so which has to lie between your optical domain. So different colors of light is generated different wavelengths, so it depends. So the usage of your direct band gap materials depends on the wavelength of interest. Okay, yeah, so in that again band gap we have discussed about direct band gap and indirect band gap. And eg can also be, yeah, how you will going to find the eg depends on the impurities added. Eg depends on the mole fraction. So how to compute it for a ternary alloys? If a semiconductor material is made up of three types of alloy, such as gallium, aluminum, as well as arsenide, GaAs. So three types of things, then it is a ternary alloy which can be calculated with an expression this which is mentioned here, where x is the mole fractions. Okay, so similarly for a quaternary alloy, if it is made up of four different types of alloys, then it is mentioned that it can be calculated using this particular expression: indium, gallium, arsenide, as well as phosphorus, four things. So in that case, the equation changes from this. So that means it depends on the mole fraction, it depends on the impurities which are added to it. So impurity is which are added to it will also deal with mole fraction. So this eg depends on the impurities added or the mole fraction. That means from that you can control the wavelength of generation of the light. That is the meaning. Okay. Next, we will go through homojunction and heterojunction. Homojunction, if there is an interface between the two similar semiconductor material. So if it is a n-type and p-type semiconductor material, both are similar and same type. Then if both are made up of silicon, then they are similar semiconductor material because their band gap is same. Then it is the junction between that p and n type is called as homojunction. Okay. Then next is heterojunction. In case of heterojunction is an interface that occurs between the two layers of dissimilar semiconductors. Two dissimilar semiconductors, one is gallium, another one is arsenide. So if you combine them, there is a layer between gallium and arsenide. That layer is heterojunction because they are different semiconductor material, their band gaps are different. So that is why it is called as heterojunction. Okay, so again this can be used. This heterojunction is again classified into two types. One is the single heterojunction, another one is double heterojunction. Okay, so heterojunction is the one which is used for manufacturing of, which is used in your LED and lasers. Okay, homojunction can be used, but the disadvantages are there for homojunction. Okay, we'll discuss that later. So in case of heterojunction, single heterojunction, that means one gallium and one arsenide. So if you combine them, there is a layer, one layer. So it is called as single heterojunction. There's a particular junction between gallium and arsenide is called as single heterojunction. If there are two types, then it is called as double heterojunction. That means on the one side, say silica, gallium and arsenide, on the other side, aluminum and arsenide. So in between them, you get two junctions. If there are two single junctions are there, then it is called as double heterojunction. So double heterojunction is a structure which is normally used in your LED and lasers. I'll go through it. So the whatever I explained it is here. It is formed when the double heterojunction structure is formed when two semiconductor materials are grown into a sandwich to a one material that gives one layer. If similar two types of heterojunctions are there, then it is called as double heterojunction. Okay. So next is an important thing is your LED, light emitting diodes. We'll go through it. So LED is a source for optical communication system requiring a bit rates less than 100 to 200 Mbps. So it generates a bit rates of 100 to 200 Mbps with multimode fibers. LED requires less complex drive circuitry. So it requires a less complex drive circuitry. In the last classes, we have discussed that LED is suitable for short distance application because it generates light in somewhat a wider band compared to that of a laser. Laser is highly coherent source. It generates a very coherent light beam, and also it is very directional light beam in case of laser. But light in case of LED, the light will spread to a wide range, so it is for a short distance communication. LED requires a less complex circuitry, and thermal stabilization is not required, so heating will be less, all these things. So next we go through the LED structure. Before you understand LED structure, we should know the properties of LED. Okay, so it has to generate an high radiance. High radiance means the output power level. So input for LED will be electrical pulse. Okay, in terms of current, it's a current input. So that is an electrical pulse in terms of current is fed into the LED, which converts that current pulse into the optical domain, a light beam. So it has to generate an high output power. So that is high radiance output. Okay. Second is fast emission rate. So there should not be delay. So time delay will be less in case of LED. Yes. That is a property as well as a requirement also. Next is high quantum efficiency. Quantum efficiency is means a number of recombinations. So the electrons and holes will recombine. So when they recombine, then they generate an energy. So the recombination rate will actually gives you the light. Okay, the amount of light. So the quantum efficiency is related to the fraction of injected electron hole pairs to recombine radiatively. So effectively, so that is your quantum efficiency. We'll go through it why recombination radiatively, recombination non-radiatively, and all these things. So these three things are not only the requirements, they are the characteristics of LED. Okay, so and three things are addressed in LED. One is the absorption losses are less in case of LED, and carrier confinement. So we'll understand with respect to diagram. Carrier confinement is used to achieve, that means all the carriers, so all the carriers will come to a region. That region is called as an active region where the recombination will takes place. So carrier is confined to a small area, that is called as carrier confinement. Okay, so optical confinement is the light has to go in that specified path itself, that is optical confinement, and these will be addressed by your LED, that is absorption losses are less, carrier confinement as well as optical confinement. We'll understand with respect to the diagrams later. Okay, so it can be achieved. LED can be used through homojunction or through single or double heterojunction structure, but double heterojunction structure has a lot of advantages compared to homojunction and single junction. Homojunction is reduce, it increases reabsorption. So similarly, so not frequently used. So it is used to a lesser extent in case of your LED. Okay, so this is double heterojunction LED is important with respect to your exam also. So whatever I have discussed, they are all the relationships between the different parameters. So starting from your first class, the only important thing with respect to your exam is, one is the characteristics of optical sources or the requirements of optical sources. We have noted 10, right? That is one important. The second thing which is important is double heterojunction of LED, whatever I am going through now. Okay, so in case of double heterojunction, so we know the heterojunction and we know double. So this n-type material and n-type material, this n-type, this is a metal contact, so to which you can connect. So your n-type material will be gallium arsenide. This your another n-type material is your gallium aluminum arsenide. So this is gallium arsenide and this is gallium aluminum arsenide. So these two are different materials. This is gallium arsenide, this is gallium aluminum arsenide. The junction between them is one heterojunction. This is single heterojunction. So on the right side, if you see, you have a p-type material, gas gallium arsenide, which is a p-type, and p-type, which is gallium aluminum arsenide, just like this. So you have a p-type material also. There is another junction. This junction is another single heterojunction. So this single heterojunction and this single heterojunction will togetherly we'll call it as double heterojunction. And also you observe gallium aluminum arsenide is there. Yeah, and the center is gallium aluminum arsenide. So both are same. This is an homojunction. So gallium aluminum arsenide, gallium aluminum arsenide. This is homojunction. So there is only two heterojunction is there in between. So that is why we call it as a double heterojunction. What is the advantage and all these things? We'll go through it. Okay. So it works only in forward bias condition. So that means if you are connected this to the negative terminal and if you are connected to the positive terminal, then the LED will function. So how it will function, we'll go through it. So if you connect it to the negative point, so there are electrons here. So these are holes here. These electrons will be pushed by the negative terminal. Okay, they will be pushed and the electrons will be confined to the center type. Okay, so here also there are holes which when you're connected to the positive terminal, the holes will be pushed here to this layer and these holes will be pushed to the center layer. Okay, so the electrons from this side will confine to the center area and also the p-type will confine to this area. This area is called as the active region. This is where your light is generated. This is active region. These are carrier confinement layers. This is a carrier confinement layer. This is also a carrier confinement layer. The holes from here will come here and the electrons will from here will come here. Okay, so the electrons and holes will come to the center region and from which there is a recombination. So the electrons, there is an abundance, after some time there is an abundance of electrons and holes which will be present in the active layer and they will recombine. So when they recombine, they release the energy in form of light. Okay, so because you have used the direct band gap material, they generate the light in that particular optical wavelength because you have selected the band gap of that type and you have chosen your wavelength, and from that point it will generate your light. Okay, so that is with respect to diagram. The same we will explain that with respect to the band gap. Okay, so in case of band gap, so just written, these are the band energy is been written below side of it. This is your active layer. For an active layer, I have written something like this. So this is your conduction band. This is your valence band. Okay, so assume that so the holes will come from this side. Okay, holes are injected from this side. That is why injected holes will come from this side, are placed here. So where is the electrons coming? Electrons coming from this side. So electrons coming from this side, injected electrons. This is electron energy. The y-axis is your electron energy. Okay, so then at the active region, in the active region, the junction is homogeneous. Okay, between these two layers, it is an homojunction. This is also an homojunction. When there is an homojunction, band gap will be less. This is your band gap between the conduction band and the valence band, and it is less. Okay, so apart from other sides, if you see, here is an heterojunction, here is an heterojunction, so their band gap will be more. Okay, this is your band gap complete. What I'm showing here, this is your band gap. Here also on the left side, this is for a n-type material, this is for a p-type material, this is in the active region. So active region band gap will be less. So when there is a band gap is less, we have used a direct material, right? We have used a direct band gap material. In this direct band gap material, this will be very close to each other and they will jump from conduction band to valence band to conduction band, and they will absorb and they will emit. They release the energy in forms of light, which is called as h nu. Okay, so this 820 nanometer is dependent on the material which you have used. So they will recombine at the active region and they generate the light. Okay, again whatever the light is generated, again it will be released. It will be released from this side. So we can make a opening so that the light comes out, and or you can place the OFC in that opening to send your light. Okay, so that is with respect to this. So here I have written a large band gap. Here I have written a very short band gap. Okay, this is the advantage of your double heterojunction. So this is heterojunction, right? This is one heterojunction. This is one. For heterojunctions, your band gaps are more. Whatever the light is generated will not go again to, will not fetch your electrons and then will recombine. It will, they come out, because due to the higher band gap they will not find the energy to recombine. If it is somewhere here, if it is an homojunction, it will be somewhere here, your band gap. There are chances that the light may again go and hit electron and again recombine. That comes into your stimulated emission. That will be in laser. So here here there is no amplification. The light has to just release and there will be no recombination should occur. So that's why whenever the light is coming out, it has no chance to again recombine. Okay, it just goes out. That is your stimulated emission. That is why heterojunction is used. So double heterojunction, whatever the light may generate from this side also, the light may generate from this side also. Okay, whatever here will just recombine, and the light, the photon is generated and the light will come out, but it will not again recombine. If it is an homojunction, there are chances of regain, again spontaneous emission will occur, chances of amplifications are there. So double heterojunction structure is useful for stimulated emission. Okay, so if we are using single heterojunction, one will be like this, one may be same here, so chances of recombination again. Okay, so which is not required in case of LED. That's why it's used. Okay, that is one diagram. The other thing is I have written a refractive index. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that wherever the band gap energy is small, refractive index is more. So that is the property of the materials. So here band gap between the active layers is less. So write the refractive index, which is more. This is a refractive index. So here band gap is more, refractive index you have to write less. So that's why it is written less. So again it is more, it is written less. So wherever the properties that you have to mention in the, normally they ask in exam, what is the relation between the refractive index and the band gap? Along with double heterogeneous structure, they'll ask you, you have to write these, the diagrams. You have to write this diagram, explain whatever I explained, and you explain this particular, this one energy band diagram, as well as you have to write. There will be 2 marks for this. All right, explain that wherever the band gap is less, refractive index will be more. Wherever the band gap is more, the refractive index will be less. Okay, so whatever I explained, it is presented in terms of sentence. Okay, so there are 2 types of band gap, that is your LED. One is a source emitting LED, another one is a edge emitting LED. So I will take that in next class. If I take it now, again I need another 15 minutes. So I'm running out of time. So I hope you have understood. Just today in this class I have explained you the basics related to that, and we have recapped that. And then we have explained about a wavelength of generation with respect to the band gap. And then we have mentioned how to calculate the band gap energy, and what is homojunction, what is heterojunction, and what is double heterostructure and single heterostructure, and the properties are the requirements for LED. And also we have discussed about the double heterojunction LED. So this is important, double heterojunction LED, as well as the characteristics of your optical sources, which we have discussed in the first class. I hope you have understood to some extent, and I will stop my share. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I will